and welcome to Let Me Talk to My Customer. I am your host, Chad Counts, along with my co-host, Richard Tyler. Thank you all for joining us this week. We hope your October is off to a killer start and that you guys are just having a wonderful month overall. Some quick announcements for us this week as we get rolling here. We've got our sales training coming up this next week. It's this Thursday for new salespersons. It's going to be at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central Time. Please reach out to me, crcounts at countsbusinessconsulting.com, if you have a new salesperson who wants to be a part of this training. It's $100 a week for a 4-week series, so please take advantage of it. We've had really good results. That's why we keep running these. So let us know. We hope we can be a part of onboarding your new sales staff. Other opportunities we have coming up, we're going to be doing our ARA presentation in November, going to be recording that soon this week. And we're looking forward to our Midwest Runner sales training and presentation the first Saturday of November coming up. Please reach out to me or Josh at Midwest Runner for more information on registering for that. So we're putting out content. We're being a part of your business, helping you guys grow. We hope you are joining along with us, and we appreciate your time with us. So, Rich, how are you doing this week, sir?
Doing great.
Excellent, excellent. I thought really had a wonderful show last week. We were excited to jump back into the same topic. This is more of a prequel, I guess you could say. We're going to be working on establishing influence. Last week, we were talking specifically on how do we regain influence, which is more during an ongoing relationship. What are some of those challenges and things we deal with? Establishing influence is becoming a part of the team, and maybe more from the outset, how we are working to influence and garner influence in the work habits and in the processes of our employees. So it's a little bit of a different process. It emphasizes some of the same elements. However, we just want to make sure that we equip you guys and give you that sort of information on how do you start. Rich and I have been fortunate. We have plenty of experience over the last few years, starting with a number of teams doing sales training, doing sales management services. And the dynamics are different from a large company and a smaller sales staff to an experienced sales staff, inexperienced sales staff. There are certainly different hurdles, different levels of effort that go into gaining and garnering this influence. And for sure, the more experience the more experienced your staff, the more effort it takes to gain their influence. The more inexperienced, is a little bit easier to step in and garner that influence with them. And then it's actually the reverse, I would say, on a large and small team, where a small team, typically, depending on if you're a small team, but they're very experienced, that can be some of the hardest nuts to crack. If you have a larger team that has varied levels of influence, typically influence can be gained by showing progress in a number of members. And so that's a little bit easier to gain that influence on a larger team. So those are dynamics. We're not necessarily going to get into those today, but did want to give you those few nuggets to start with so that you can think about your own sales team and your own sales counter. And this, I would say, applies to production staff or other areas as well. These are truths that are common in personal lives as well as our work lives, which we always emphasize here. So we'll jump in with some thoughts about successful leaders in our own lives and our experience. I think a lot of the things we're going to be talking about will resonate a lot more if you're picturing who are those influential people that have been in your life, whether it be in school, whether it be in sports, whether it be in your hobbies. Hopefully, you've had the benefit of having some impactful leaders in your life and have seen them and allowed them to have influence. And hopefully you can relate to some of those elements that they have to try and make that a part of who you are as a leader, as somebody that's trying to bring these results to bear. It's not as simple as just executing what we're asking you to, although that's certainly a part of it. It's really important to bring these to be a part of yourself, right? We want these leadership habits, we want these management habits to become a part of who you are as a person. because that makes them lasting, right? If you're just doing it as an exercise or doing it as a one-off, you're going to struggle. You might gain some momentum a little bit here, but it's really important to make some of these elements of what we're talking about a practice of who you are. Anybody can learn these. Anybody can develop these skills. So, Rich, when you think in your own life about successful leaders or people that have been a positive impact for you, what are some of the elements or characteristics of that relationship or how that person was engaging with you?
Some of their characteristics, I mean, most notably are that they're going to be trustworthy. They're going to be somebody who's credible in whatever area it is that they're trying to have their leadership. I suppose I'm thinking in particular of a teacher I had. Very, very credible, very trustworthy, somebody who's highly acknowledged in their field. So he already had a bit of credibility from that. But yeah.
So had good. Okay, good. So there was a credibility factor. There was a trust. They had either prior history or results that they could point to. Now, did he have to beat you over the head with those?
No, he didn't. In fact, the person I'm thinking of in particular was an extremely gentle individual.
Right, and so part of having that credibility and trust is not this forceful effort to make themselves look better, right? It comes across as genuine. I'm not. If somebody were to push back on his credibility or experience, I think he could sit back and just, I've gone through this before. There's not a sense of having to panic to prove oneself. It's, hey, okay, I understand where you're coming from. Here's what I can bring to the table. As managers, I think we see that a lot. Anytime we're stepping into a new situation, whether we have prior experience or not, if we come across as bragging or kind of hitting people over the head with a hammer, I think they become more resistant. If we allow them to express their concerns, their doubts, or question us, and we take that and we say, okay, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and we answer that with good humility, but also with firmness and confidence, and I think that's what speaks volume. The other side to teachers, coaches, and things like that, I find for myself a major element for people who have impacted me has been how well they know me. That sense that this person is taking the time and not just giving me some sort of boilerplate recommendation or advice, but it's taking the time to figure out, what's motivating to me, whether it be on a personal level or whether, however that is. It's a little bit easier to take on their opinion because the person of who I am is considered. And I think some managers really struggle with this. They have the right advice, they even have the right credentials and trust. That person being willing to take a little bit of extra time to understand that person's background, where they're coming from, why they might be resistant, why they might have opposition, and hearing that can a lot of times be the reasons why their advice doesn't take root. Right? So what about a sense of how important is it in for you, Rich, that this person has some sense that they believe in you or have some level of confidence in you as their guide?
Yeah, no. I mean, that's hugely important that they believe in me. I think it definitely is something I was thinking about from our conversation with last week about how to bring somebody back into the fold. But it's like, if they don't believe in you, then you really that needs to be one of the important ingredients.
Well, even as a manager, as a leader, if you lose belief in your subordinates from time to time, that also makes it tough. Makes it tough to want to do the difficult work of getting in there with them to rebuild that trust or rebuild that confidence. So I think about that a lot too. That kind of works against each other when there's a loss of belief in how we operate, right? So, okay, we're going to talk about two main leadership approaches, at least from the start, from the outset. And what we typically see, one is the one we endorse and one is one we do not endorse, but we often see. So there is what I would call a short-term leadership approach, and leadership is probably the wrong word. I would say a short-term results approach is probably a better way to put that. And the process typically for short-term results is outcome focus first, second is process, last is people. So I come in, I have my directive, I have my goals, I have my expectations, whether that be external from my owner manager or whether that be internal for myself on what I want to achieve. And I put those results ahead of everything, whether that means shortcutting process, whether that means shortcutting people. And it becomes really clear, okay, we typically put something front and center. Now, maybe that's a warranty goal. Hey, we are going to sell $10,000 or $15,000 in warranty this month. And if you don't do that, then there's some sort of consequence. So how that looks is typically, it's very clear. It's very clear what the desired results are. And there typically are some sort of incentive or consequence that comes along with those of, hey, we're either going to hit this or we're not, right? It feels very punitive that it's driven, this is going to happen. And so that's the result. The benefit of that is, yes, okay, I mean, you put something that hard and fast and direct in front of somebody's face, and you are going to get their attention. You're going to get movement on what they're doing much faster, okay? The problem with that is there's no internal development of a good process, right? These people are more than likely trying to find some sort of shortcut, trying to find some sort of way to just make these results happen without understanding why or how to sustain that or to make that a part of what they're doing long term. The other side of
it, interrupt really quickly again, just to bring you back to kind of like when we were fleshing this out earlier. It would be like the sales team member that always sells the warranty on the alternator. Oh, they said I need to sell more warranty. Oh, I'm just gonna go pick after whatever the easiest warranty sale is.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of keying in on the higher dollar items that are really going to get them to the numbers that they're looking for, right? Or you have a lot of people that are just trying and getting frustrated because they don't know what to do, or they start, oh, we need more warranty, I'm just going to cut the price and add some in there. I mean, there's you can crank out numbers in a lot of different ways. And many times, if we try and shortcut that or force that through, it's very short-sighted. And all we're doing is just moving money in different buckets, as opposed to having a good understanding of how this impacts my customer, having a good understanding of how this impacts my salesperson, and really bring this up into something that they can develop and keep long-term. The major problem with fear-based leadership or short-term leadership is high stress. It's high focus, high stress, high energy, and low engagement, low motivation, low process. Because of that, the results typically only hold or last so long as the fear or the punishment or the consequences stay elevated. And not only that, after a bit of time, so let's say 2 or 3 months, if the consequences stay the same, if the fear level stays the same, even then you're going to see regression in results, because all of a sudden we get used to that level of stimulus and we get used to that level of fear, and it doesn't have the same impact. So you have to continue to keep people afraid. You have to continue to push and push and push. And I know all of you are loving hearing this, because I'm sure hearing this over and over again is giving you that feeling of, man, that sounds awful. That is terrible. And we see this often. We see this often on counters that have high turnovers, and it tends to be this relentless cycle of, okay, a 2 to 3 month uptick. Okay, we're doing better. And then burnout and loss of achievement, loss of accomplishment. And so then we're getting this constant cycle of engagement and motivation and training, and we're hiring. And it never feels like we're building anything, because it's just this crazy cycle of short-term focus, leading to short-term results that are then robbed and go right back to where we were. Okay. Does that sound appealing to anybody? No. Okay. That's not the approach we want to go with. Okay. And for obvious reasons. Long-term leadership, long-term results, which is what we're all about. It's what we're after. Building habits, building systems, building people that can sustain the results, sustain the growth that we're looking for. So this reverses that process. It starts with people. We understand that, especially in sales, it's a highly emotional field. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of passion, it takes a lot of drive to continue to sustain sales performance. And so building those people up matter a lot. Now, Rich, on top salespeople, how do they strike you in just terms of their satisfaction with life, their drive to succeed professionally? Um, do they seem to be people that are easily swayed by short-term incidences?
Absolutely not.
Right? There's this sense of solidness, of confidence, of
Yep.
they might get disappointed or might get held up, but man, they're bringing that lunch pail to work every day. They're keeping that attitude every day. They're going to trust their process. They're going to trust their relationships and what they've built, and they're going to build on that. And those people don't get there by themselves. Typically, they've had some sort of positive influence either prior to their work history, or they've had a good manager help them develop that. Their relationships with their customers are the same way. They might hit speed bumps here and there, but over the long term, they've built some sort of long-term reserve or perspective on what this relationship is and what it means. So likewise, when we're leading people, we're developing a division, we're developing a team, whether it's production, sales, management structure, or in our personal life and hobbies and different things that we're working on, it's important, just like what Rich and I were talking about in the leaders in our own life. I want to understand who these people are. It's the priority that they know that they are valued by me. If I'm going to lead this person needs to know that I care about them, that I want to know about them. I want to understand what's important in their life, what's important for their success, how they're properly motivated, because I don't want to pull them. My leadership is not pulling or pushing them in a direction. It's walking with them. It's showing them an example. It's setting a pace. They are bringing their own energy and engagement to the process, to the progress. That's why teams that have good leadership and excellent management, they grow at a profound rate because they're not having to go back and keep repairing these blowups or these short-term overlaps. We've been pleased and been a party to working with some really talented teams that have great management. And yeah, there's burnout that happens, but it's not as often. And it's typically met with, all right, let's talk. Let's get you tuned back up. Let's get you back out there. Even when commissions change or structures change, there's this thought process of, hey, I'm going to do this with you, not to you. This is in the best interest for you and the company going forward. And so it's a collaborative effort. It's not something that's just being pounded or hit on. Because of that, because I want to have influence with my people, I allow them to have influence on the process, right? We talk about that, we engage in that. I might not let them set the process, and in most cases, I'm not going to, but I want to have their opinion. I want to have their understanding of what that process is and what they like and what they don't like. Because if I want them to execute, I need to have their buy-in, and they need to understand why they're executing on it, not just how. And I would say for the most part, Rich, and maybe you can agree or disagree, the reason why this process doesn't happen is time. I get the sense from a lot of companies or a lot of people that to take the time to get to know somebody or work them through it or even work them through why a process is necessary doesn't happen. And that's one of the biggest failings we have in our industry in terms of leadership is we don't take the time to engage people and lead people through a process.
I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that. And I would say it's undeniable that the short-term leadership or short-term results is much easier to implement. It's much easier to yell at somebody with your fist in the air and tell them to do something than it is to invest time in them and in explaining and making sure that you have their trust. Of course.
Yeah, because when it's done well, I mean, there's still heartache over commissions changing, and that might last a week or two. But if the conversation never happens, that thing can fester for 2 or 3 months. We've had those hard conversations, and the salespeople don't always love it still, but they do develop a sense of understanding, and their engagement level does pick back up by having the conversation with them and bringing them on board. And ultimately, that's what this is about. I don't know many successful companies that don't have long-term employees and have long-term growth. Most of the teams we've been a party to work with are on their way to that or have that. And it's a pleasure to work with those employees. And I think this is essential that we have this sort of leadership developing within our companies because our employees are worth that. It's a pleasure to get to work with them over 20, 30 years. Many of our best employees work for us a long, long time. So how could we not want the best interest for them? How could we not want to see their life grow and their sales grow and have a positive development? And that should be honored, right? We not just setting goals and not just setting new benchmarks, but creating opportunities to recognize people, to recognize their growth, recognize their leadership. And that should be happening on an ongoing basis, if at least on a weekly basis, if not a monthly or annual basis. Those people are important to our outcome. And if we invest in people and we invest in processes, and those are right, we're investing in the right people, we're investing in the right processes, there's no way we're not going to get the right outcome. That just doesn't happen, right? Maybe we could have some huge inventory problems or something like that that could kind of stall us out. But I mean, if you want to be built to grow, and in this industry right now, we're having record growth every single month. So if you're not in that, there's something wrong either with your people, your processes, or your inventory. There's no exceptions to that. It could be your leadership as well that's lacking in that. But these are all doable things. These are all workable skills. These are all workable influences and things that we can focus on. And as everything else goes on, typically one of the main reasons why this gets overlooked is the whirlwind or the chaos of the day. And you're not going to get somewhere by accident. So if you have a destination, a company goal of growth, even you as a salesperson, you're listening to this, you have a personal goal of selling 3 million a year, 4 million a year, whatever that is. How are you going to get there? And don't think you need to get there on their own. How are you going to equip or engage your team to be able to hit those goals? Because we can all go so much further when we're working together and we're leading together and we're developing together than if we're simply trying to pull our weight by ourselves or pull in a direction alone, okay? So here at Counts Business Consulting, hopefully we can be a part of your team. We love being a part of the teams that we're a part of right now. Christian and I are trying to keep up. We're growing on our end too, to match your growth, to keep pace with your growth. And the sales training goes a long way for that. So hopefully you enjoyed this content, and hopefully you can find us on YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us on Facebook at Counts Business Consulting, Spotify, iTunes, wherever. We're there. We want to hear from you. And if there's any way we can be a part of your team to help develop your leadership or be a part of your team to help develop your growth and your sales skills, we'd love to be a part of that. So thanks for joining us today. Anything else you want to add, Rich?
No, just like you said, we look forward to hearing from you. And as always, please send us your feedback.
Excellent. Thanks everybody for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful fall. Let's finish October strong. And again, the new salesperson training is coming up this Thursday. Reach out to me if you have somebody you'd like to enroll. Thank you very much.